kind of music do you got going here, by the way? You got yourself muted. There you go.
Please tell me you can hear me.
Yeah, I mean, hell yeah.
I'm calling it a night. Oh, man, jeez.
Do this thing.
All right. Oh, I can't believe people actually are still hung with us. You guys are awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one good thing about I could display some comments, so we're gonna roll through them here. What's up, everyone? How we doing?
Get him off the stream. I mean, we did the deal. All right, we did the deal. All right, Nick. I don't know what the hell to do here. We start the show over? Do we just continue our rhetoric? I think that you need a clean break for the podcast for the morning. So, ready? Hold on. I'll tell you what. We'll do it live. Live. Give me a minute.
What is going on? What is happening? This was the I thought the Reds were about to cruise to a 9-3 win, have a nice little show. All shit breaks loose in the game. None of our streams work. But hey, Freds. Reds are 3 back. How about that? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I'm just talking to myself and a couple of my best friends here on YouTube.
All right. You ready to start the show, Nick? You just say when. Is that go? 3, 2, 1, go? I mean, I'm waiting for it go.
Go.
All right, here we go. It's like it never, everything just went away, Nick. Reds win. It was close, I think. Hell, I didn't even get to see the whole 9th inning because I was too worried about trying to get technology to work. And on top of that, I thought the game was in the bag. Turns out I was wrong. For those that probably have never heard before, we do this thing called a box score recap. Nick, you need to do a box score recap and take it away. Hopefully your mic works.
All right, hopefully we are rolling. All right, top of the first inning tonight. Reds left the bases loaded, but they did make Red Sox starter Brian Bayo throw 33 pitches, which would turn out to be key in this game. Top of the second, Will Benson ripped a single up the middle. Stuart Fairchild then took a pitch the other way, and Benson showed off his speed going first to third. TJ Friedel hit a tailor-made double play, but he showed off his speed as well, hustling down the line, and the Reds were able to steal their first run 1-0. TJ Friedel would later leave the game with right hamstring tightness. We move on to the top of the 5th. Jonathan India leadoff single off the Green Monster. It's the hardest hit ball of the night. And then Jake Fraley doubled him home to make it 2-0. Bottom of the 5th, Reds starting pitcher Ben Lively had really been mowing the Red Sox down, but they had a good chance with Raimel Tapia as he smoked a ball off the wall for a double. Jose Barrero, who entered the game replacing Friedel, played the ball well off the wall, threw a strong relay to Matt McClain, who fired a bullet home, and Tyler Stevenson made a nice tag to keep the score 2-0. Hard to believe the score was 2-0 after 5 innings in this one. Top of the 6th, Will Benson singled his 3rd hit of the game. He had also tripled earlier in the night. Jose Barrero walked, and the Red Spree created another run on an error from Enrique Hernandez, rushing the throw with Matt McClain running. 3-0 Reds. Ben Lively on the night. Incredible again. 5 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 0 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Lively now has a 1.99 ERA on the season. Top of the 7th, Stuart Fairchild walked with the bases loaded. That made it 4-0. And as good of a night as it had been for the Reds up to this point, they were 0 for 14 with runners in scoring position. Jose Barrero changed that with a grand slam over the Green Monster, 421 feet, 106.5 off the bat. It was 8-0 Reds. It got really dicey at the end. Final score ended up being 9-8 as a tough night for Eduardo Salazar as he gave up 5 earned runs in the 9th inning to allow the Red Sox to creep back into this. But Alexis Diaz shut the door down, striking out Casas to end the ball game, stranding the tying runner on third base. Reds win 9-8. Reds have won 4 games in a row, one shy of their season high back at the end of April. Reds have scored 8+ runs in 4 straight games for the first time since 1987. Oh, and the Reds are just 3 games out of first place in the National League Central as the Milwaukee Brewers lost today.
Interesting. How many, Nick? How many are out?
3.
Okay. It sounds fun. I have a quick question for you. You've taught me about this. How do I get the chat in a whole separate window?
You hit the
pop out chat.
Pop out.
Game changer. Found it. All right. Your boy's back. I'm feeling good now. Nothing can stop me. All the way up.
You're in the chat too.
Yeah, that's great. So here's the deal. I got a lot of stuff I'd like to talk about tonight, and these things popping up on the screen, or there's something. I don't know where the hell to start, because I was absolutely like flabbergasted that if someone as smart and as intelligent and as wise and as good as at their job as they are, would say something so outlandishly stupid that it would make me question everything that I previously thought about this person. And I'm talking about Kirk Herbstreit, obviously. I have no idea what the hell he's talking about. And I can't focus because Nick's just crying out loud, laughing into the chat. Yeah, maybe Kirby does have the ganja. Who knows? He needs to send some our way. Nick, as you continue to laugh here on the stream, I'm not sure what you're laughing about exactly, but I'll let you explain that. But before we get into any serious topics, what exactly is so funny?
It's just the chat. The chat's undefeated, man. They crack me up. We're having a good time. Reds win. Trace.
The Reds do win. And at some point we need to understand who this team is. We're still young. We're still probably in a position right now where the starting pitching at some point is going to let us down. I thought tonight might have been the night where the bullpen did something unusual. At least when I was getting those texts in the ninth. But you just kind of start thinking of all these things that are probably, I guess this is the pessimistic side of me. The pessimistic side is this, Nick, is that at some point, this stuff's going to catch up to us. Either the bullpen's not going to be as good as they have been, because they probably shouldn't be as good as they've been all year, or the starting pitching has not been consistent enough to have a decent team. This offense, you would argue, has a severe lack of power, and at some point that's probably going to rear its ugly head. But then I keep thinking to myself, well, if the starting pitching, which has been absolutely trash, turns it around just a little bit, the bullpen stays relatively the same, you decide to bring up major leaguers that just so happen to be playing for the Louisville Bats for the past month and a half, we might actually be playing meaningful baseball come this fall. I'm not suggesting that they're going to make the playoffs yet. And I'm not suggesting that they should make the playoffs yet. But I am starting to think, maybe, just maybe, that this team has more big league, bona fide, average or above average players than we originally thought that they had.
So this game was wild. Ben Lively, 5 2/3 shutout innings, and your Reds bullpen gives up 8 runs. Now, granted, 3 of those were Fernando Cruz just coming back after an injury, and then Eduardo Salazar with 5 runs. I know when a game like this happens and the bullpen, especially some of your lesser relievers, gives up a bunch of runs, I know the natural reaction is stupid manager. Reds don't have an off day here till June 15th. I mean, you were up a ton of runs. This is where you have to try to get outs with some of these other guys. Just thank God that Alexis Diaz was able to shut this door in the 9th inning. I mean, that's I guess where I look at this. I don't want to take away from the swing that Jose Barrero had, the night that Will Benson had, the night that Ben Lively had. I mean, Ben Lively just completely outpitched the Red Sox best, maybe, I don't know, maybe the best pitcher, but their highest upside pitcher. And he had been pitching really, really well from this game. ERA under 3 in the month of May. This guy has nasty stuff, but the Reds just grinded out at bat after at bat after at bat, and he was pumped. Their guy was pumped when he went off the mound, but he only got through 4 innings because the Reds made him work his tail off tonight. And so that's just kind of where I'm at. I mean, this team has flaws, but this team fights like hell every single night, and that's why we're in the spot at this point in the season.
Can you hear that, Nick?
I can.
Is that coming through?
It is.
It is. This is specifically who is in the chat that wanted this. I want to give credit where credit is due. Hold on. AJ Worse, a leader of men. At some point, we do need to give David Bell some credit, okay? I was the one that said he does do this, and it pisses me off. It pisses me off. You know, you just mumble in the post-game interview after you lost 7 of the last 8, and you just, it's going to turn itself around. That does irritate me. It irritates me more than maybe it should irritate me. But I will give David Bell some credit in saying that, you know what? I'm going to spend the next 2 minutes giving credit where credit is due. David Bell deserves credit. Kevin Newman deserves credit. And you, Nick Kirby, deserves some credit. You do, Nick. You do, because I made fun of you. I laughed at you. I told you that this was some stupid little computer game you were playing about Kevin Newman pitch hitting for Jake Fraley. You remember that? Well, I got news for you. I love Jake Fraley as much as the next guy. But that dude can't hit a left-handed pitcher to save his gosh darn life, okay? He just can't do it. And I'm fully on board with that. I apologize to everybody that I made fun of in regards to pinch hitting Kevin Newman for Fraley back in the day. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. This Reds team is turning the corner. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. A large part of this team turning the corner is getting production out of guys that I was making fun of, which was Kevin Newman. I'm not saying he should be an everyday guy, but he has played really, really well the past 2 weeks. You gonna take credit, or are you just gonna sit there?
Just happy to see the old boys playing well. Newman had I think was he over, but he got really robbed on that one ball that would have broke the game open. A nice diving play by their left fielder. But yeah, Newman's playing well.
He hit a ball sharply up the middle too. Like he had a good at bat, turned into a walk. He's played really, really well. There's so many topics we can get into tonight. And I have a feeling this show is going to be a little bit longer than usual. The chat's popping. We're having fun. I want you to steer the ship, Nick, because I have so many opinions on certain things that I'm really trying to keep a relatively straight and narrow. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's some guys that deserve credit tonight. You had mentioned it, Ben Lively, who was on the rundown before the rundown just decided it wasn't going to work tonight. He's been incredible from the start. He's not had one situation since he's been up here to where you thought to yourself, man, there he is, you know, there comes Ben Lively. I don't know how long this is sustainable, but I don't really care at this point. You know, it's like, what is it? The last point I was going to make to you is like, what is it about some guys that can struggle at the minor league level and then they just get a chance? And the next thing you know, that's all they needed. They just kind of needed like you know what it kind of reminds me of, and maybe it's a bad example. It's when like the guy that's struggling at the plate really, really bad, and you just decide you're just gonna hit him lead off. You're just trying to provide a little spark for him. Tell him, you know, like we believe in you. You're gonna hit lead off today. I know you're 1 for your last 14, but we don't care. I don't know. Bronco said that McLean looked lost tonight. I'm gonna have to read that again because I'm not sure what the hell he's talking about. But anyway, go ahead, Nick.
Well, on Lively, I mean, I don't think we need to declare, hey, we got a cornerstone rotation piece for the future or anything. But this also hasn't been some smoke and mirrors show either. Left of the chat.
Dude, you've got to fucking put it together. You've got to pull it together, Nick. We're trying to do a show, man. Trying to do a show. Well, I mean, my gosh, I'm going to start believing the conspiracy theories in the chat. Got a vape pen or something behind the closed curtain. Come on, Nick. Figure it out.
But Lively does have 24 strikeouts and
This show is so good. It was so good a couple nights ago, and now it's just so bad. Oh man. Go ahead, Nick. What? All right. Nick, do you need me to give you a topic, or what do you need from me? How can I help you? You want me to talk for a minute? All right, everybody. Nick Kirby smoked a pile of weed so high that you literally couldn't even see through the front door if you stacked it on your front porch. All right, but beside the point, I'm trying to figure out what we should even talk about right now. Do we want to get into the India talk? I mean, we have one national story written about the Cincinnati Reds in the past 10 years, it feels like, and we decided to write it about maybe arguably one of our better players getting traded, which we've talked about on the show time and time again. But then what it does is this. This is the thing that pisses me off, okay? Well, let's get into this. This is the thing that pisses me off about the whole Jonathan India thing. It does a couple things. It requires you to start to belittle and degrade your own guys. Okay, that's the first issue I have with this whole thing. It becomes let me tear down player A so I can try to promote and explain why player B should be better here. And that's my fundamental issue with the whole thing. The other side of it is that there is arguments and counter arguments for every single point that has been made by every single person. The only one, right? The only one that is the worst take you could possibly have on the face of the earth. And what I mean is, if you have this take, you don't know ball. You don't know anything about this game. You don't take what is possibly the best player on planet Earth, the guy that's ranked number 1 out of all the players in the world that are coming to Major League Baseball. You don't touch that person to move somewhere else, especially if you're trying to move them to make way for a below average defensive player. We're not going to tear anybody down on this show, but that's the first thing I have on this whole subject. Okay. Just a reminder. I tweeted this out. Matt McLain was not even a top 100 prospect before he got called up to the big leagues. He got called up to the big leagues, and somebody around the roost that does these rankings was like, you think we should slide McLain in here? He's hitting like 795 in Louisville, and he just got called up to the big leagues, and he was the number one draft, or not the number one draft pick, but he was a first-round draft pick out of high school and college. Just, you think we should slide him in there in case he becomes a Hall of Famer? They did that, Nick. But by the way, let me remind you that Matt McLain's been one of our best players since he's came up. I'm not saying he's going to be that way forever. And if he is, he'll be maybe the best baseball player in the history of the league. However, he wasn't even in the top 100. And Elly De La Cruz is number 1. That just shows you the opportunity that exists with Elly. Matt McLain might have a better career than Elly De La Cruz. Okay. And there is something to be said about the fact that Jonathan India has proven himself at the major league level to a certain extent. And this is where I don't want to tear India down, but I do want to tell the truth. Jonathan India has done just as much for the Cincinnati Reds as Scooter Gennett did the 2 years that he was here when he was an all-star the second year. I'm not trying to say that they're the same player. Okay. Hear me out. I'm not trying to say they're the same player. I am saying you can't be a prisoner of the moment, and you can't always dive into these intangibles and say that you can't do this because the guy's a leader. You can't do this because the guy's this. I would beg the question to those people. He's been a leader of what exactly? I love Jonathan India. I do think that he's probably a good leader. But to sit here and act like he's Derek Jeter or Cal Ripken in the back end of his career, please don't compare him to Scott Rowland. That's all I'm saying is like we don't have to go to extremes on both sides to try to make our point valid. And the biggest thing I have on this is that we don't need to try to make, basically a mountain out of a molehill over a position. That's, if someone's such a great leader, then my argument would be they're going to do what's best for the team regardless. And if the best for the team is being a DH, or the best for the team is going to left field, or the best for the team is playing third base, or hell, pitch. If they ask Jonathan India to pitch, then, maybe he'd be like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, we're sure. Then you do it, because that's what I think a leader would do. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say he's a great leader, and then you can't tell me that he has every right and every rhyme to reason to not move positions. To be fair and to be very clear about this whole Jonathan India thing, I don't think he's said a single word about not moving positions. And the second thing I would say is he's deserved none of the hate and or the slander, because he has gotten better at second base, and he does deserve credit for doing that. And the last thing I'll say is this: we should just be thankful that he's on our team as Reds fans. All of what I just said can be true, Nick Kirby. All of it. Doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, I think Ellie's got to play at shortstop. I think that's the biggest issue out of all of this. It feels very much to me like a situation that in 5 or 10 years from now, people are going to look back and go, people were if you're looking at it from that angle, then you have to move guys around. It's you run out of spots, right? It's nothing more, nothing less than that. Yeah, it's interesting. I keep going back to, why wouldn't the Reds have thought of this ahead of time? I mean, I think that there's some merit to, they probably didn't expect all of these guys to all be ready at the same time. They probably didn't expect everyone to relatively stay healthy that are in these positions up to this point. And then I also think that there might be some merit to wanting to keep, as much as people are going to hate me saying this, wanting to keep Jonathan India at second base as long as possible to keep his trade value up. But this is much less of an issue if the Reds are 15 games back, like realistically probably a lot of us thought or thought was possible at this point. So there's just a lot of factors to this. It really is a good problem to have, though. There's so many Reds teams over the last couple decades where you're trying to throw anyone at spots. I mean, right now we legitimately have too many players for spots, and these are players that we just don't like. These are players with legitimate good upside.
Right. Now you bring up a very good point, and in a sombering and sober point at that is this: you don't want to move India if you don't think that he's a part of the long-term future of what your organization is going to be. One of those could be the fact that Jonathan India is not interested in moving positions. And the secondary part of that would be, if he's not interested in moving positions, it's largely because there's a lot of money to be made. If you're the type of player that he is and you play second base, you could make a lot of money. Way more money than you can make in left field, way more money than you can make as a DH. We all know that. Jonathan India knows that. Scott Boras knows that. So there's a reason as to why he would not want to move. And he has gotten better at the position. So if you're the Reds and you know all of these things, and you know it's going to be really hard to sign Jonathan India long term, because you're not going to spend a bunch of money on a player that you feel like you have a, I don't want to say a ceiling or a floor for that matter. The next player behind him, Nick, like it or not, might not be that much different of a player than what he is. You rather spend your money on something you know that you don't have a lot of depth in, that you know you need. And I hate to say this, but we all know that infielders right now, at least what we look and perceive it to be, that is not an issue. If anything, we might have too many, if that's such a thing. We do know that we need starting pitching, and we do know that we need some bats that probably have some pop outside of CES. So I hate to say this, and I'm not suggesting they should trade him. I'm just saying that there's a reason as to why they're probably keeping him at second base, and it probably is, to be fair. They know more than we do. There's way too many variables to say you should and should not trade him. But you don't move India off of second base at all if you have plans to move him and try to get as much value in return for him. All right. Next topic.
Jose Barrero. How good was that?
Yeah, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. You don't like that?
He did also walk. Had another hit too.
I just meant it was one game.
Yeah, but it was a nice night for him. I just meant more it was nice moment for him. You could tell his teammates really enjoyed him having that moment, and what turned out to be a very big swing as this game went on. But yeah, I mean, Barrero and Benson, these are two guys that desperately needed a night like this. And Will Benson, 4 hard hit balls tonight. I mean, that's just that's what he did at AAA. It hasn't materialized his way to the big leagues yet. We don't need to jump and say, well, Benson's back and he's the next superstar. But it was just nice to see that a lot of things that any of us who've watched the bats with Benson, you're able to see that tonight. And I think he's got a chance to be a good player, at least a legitimate platoon option for the Reds going forward. And as a guy that there's not a lot of left-handed pop in this lineup. So I think that really excites me about Benson.
Well, Will Benson is young too. Like, Will Benson's got every opportunity to turn it around and figure it out and have a decent little big league career. And maybe a good big league career. I don't want to downplay what Will can do. And I've said it for quite some time that I think Jose Barrero has what it takes to be a pretty good big leaguer. The problem is it doesn't matter. Having what it takes and doing are two different things. My issue is that when you see a guy that you're like, wow, I want that guy on my team, Matt McLain looks that to me. Like, I don't get that same vibe with Jose Barrero. Now, could it happen? Yeah, but I just don't get the same inclination. And I think that when you add on top of the fact that we have Elly De La Cruz, who should be in Cincinnati on Friday, he's got to be. I mean, we can get into that topic in a minute. But he's just unfortunately a guy that I don't know. I don't want to say I've given up completely hope on him, but I don't see it, I guess, right now. And I think he's going to get sit down to AAA. I don't say no matter what he does in the next 4 days, but that's how I feel. Do you think he's got any chance to stay up here? I guess if Friedel's hurt.
Well, and Senzel. I mean, Senzel was scratched from the lineup too today with right knee soreness. So,
right. What's Hopkins got to do to get a chance? Just because he's not on the 40-man, then he's never going to get a chance, or what?
Who's he taking at bats from?
Jose Barrero?
I mean, I think that would be a temporary fix, though. I don't know. Who would you? I guess let's play that out a little bit. Let's say, let's just say for the sake of argument, Senzel and Friedel both had to go on the IL. All right. So you call Elly up. Elly plays third base, or there's some sort of combination where you're playing him. We've talked about that before, but he's filling that one of those infield spots, and you could keep everyone else sort of similar. Would you want to keep running out Jose Barrero in center field and at the big league level, or would you rather send him down to AAA and let him take that shortstop spot?
Yeah, I'm sending him down to AAA. I don't think Jose Barrero has what it takes. Listen, I don't want to take the best the possible. Now, he didn't make the routine plays. I'm not sold on the fact of taking away the best attribute of Jose Barrero just because you don't really have a spot for him on the major league squad at this moment, right? Like, I would much rather personally to send him back to AAA, let him play his natural and best position, and maybe he gets red hot again. And at that point, as crazy and sad as this is to say, I would rather move him for some pieces that might help me for a playoff push, whether it be bullpen arms or something along those lines, because there's only so many guys that are going to have so long in regards to their service time with the Reds. And Barrero could become an all-star, but sometimes you need a new scenery regardless of what happens. And I'm not saying that's the case for Barrero for a Reds uniform, but it's hard for me to imagine a day, right? It's hard for me to imagine a day where Ellie, Matt McLain, and the only other possibility would be is if India were to get traded and Marte doesn't pan out. All that has to happen for Barrero, in my opinion, to have a spot in this infield. And as an outfielder, forget it. He'll never be a good enough defensive outfielder to be able to make up for the lack of production at the plate. And I like Barrero. I'm just telling you that's how I feel about him.
Well, let me play devil's advocate on that a little bit, because I think you laid it out well. It's hard to see Jose Barrero having a starting spot unless there's like an injury or whatever. It's hard to see him being penciled in as a guy at any of those infield positions in the next couple upcoming years. So if he's going to stick around with the Reds, I don't think you trade him, because I don't think he's got enough trade value left at this point to where I feel like he's more valuable to you, because I just don't think anyone's going to give up for someone who's kind of that unproven and has had that many struggles. So if he's going to have to be penciled, we've talked about him being the next Kevin Newman, right? He's the Kevin Newman on the next Reds team. He's going to probably have to be a guy that maybe has to play a little bit of center field. And so you're kind of getting him into this role where he's the next utility type player. So
I understand the concept, but I would like a guy on the bench with some speed if he's going to play utility. Like, I'd like to have a guy that I can also pinch run. Kevin Newman, you can say whatever you want about him, and I've said everything about him outside of talking bad about his family. But Kevin Newman can run. His sprint speed is one of the highest on the team. So I don't think that's an adequate comparison. To be very clear to Carrick Melvin here in the chat, I'm not talking about trading Barrero this year. What I'm saying is that if you realize that Marte's a guy, and you realize that Ellie's a guy, and you realize that McLain's a guy, then there's just not a space for Barrero anymore. It's like, I guess the best example I can use, or the terrible analogy of the day, is it's like you just won a lottery contest to get the world's nicest mattress. You might have just bought your mattress last week, and it is pretty nice, but you're not sleeping on it anymore. It's worthless to you. You don't have a place for it in the house. You find someone else that could use it, and you get something else that you might not get of equal return for, but it doesn't matter. It's a surplus. Don't be a hoarder. Don't stick it in your garage and think that that you're gonna use it in a couple years, and it just never happens. It's just sitting there forever. Get some value in return for it. This is an easy phone call to make. You call up a general manager and you say, "Listen, I got. You know what I have? I might have the 10th best infielder in all of Major League Baseball. The problem is I got 3 of the top 7 infielders in Major League Baseball, and I just got an extra one. Do you want him? Because he's better than what you got. Now, what I do need in return is XYZ. I'm not suggesting we're there yet, but I'm also not sitting here thinking to myself, you know what the spot for Barrero is going to be? You know how we can get all of our return on him is we'll stick him in the outfield where he never played that growing up. He doesn't have great sprint speed. He's not like a guy I can bring off the bench and go steal a base. But I just want to keep him because he was a top prospect in our organization, and I kind of like him. I don't want him to go somewhere else and succeed because it'll look like I'm an idiot. No. Joe Burrow left Ohio State, went to LSU, had a great career. Doesn't mean Joe Burrow was going to ever be anything at Ohio State. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. I would like to keep him though. I want to hoard. I want to hoard Trace. I want to hoard all these prospects. I want to keep as many as I can, but you never know. You never know if you're going to be in the middle of a division title race, and God forbid Ellie De La Cruz gets hurt, and you need a shortstop, and you have a guy like Jose Barrero that could instantly go in.
Matt McLain can play shortstop.
Sure, but okay, but or play second base or whatever. Jose Barrero's, I think, going to be a legitimate option there, and it takes guys sometimes like Nick Senzel. He's finally having his best year, and it took him a long time to get there. So I don't know. Jose Barrero feels like the guy that you keep. He probably never pans out to anything in trade. He becomes a superstar.
And that's, if that happens, we can't sit here and be, I mean, I get it, and I'm not against Barrero by any means, but no one wants to give credit. No one remembers the guy that got whatever team it is over the hump because they came in the 7th inning and they shut people down in the playoffs, because they're irrelevant within a year or two. But you know what's not irrelevant? The World Series championship that you have sitting there. If the Washington Nationals a few years ago, right, traded their number one prospect in the farm system for a shutdown 7th inning guy, a guy that you knew was like Alexis Diaz, but he pitched in the 7th inning instead of the 9th inning, you don't remember those guys. But you know what? Those guys are the ones that actually help you win the whole entire damn thing. So that's all I'm trying to say, is that I'm painting a huge hypothetical here. I get that. But you could tell I'm not a hugger. Listen, I'm not saying trade them all. I just don't buy into this notion that is just because we've drafted them and we've raised them through our system. We can't let that be the reason as to why we want to hold on to guys and not hold on to guys. We need to stop falling in love with players and just look at them for who they are. We've done that in the past. I brought up Scooter Gennett. Everybody wants to make fun of me. They want to be like, "Oh, you don't compare Scooter Gennett to Jonathan India." Well, for 2 years, for 300 games in a Reds uniform, for their first 300 games in a Reds uniform, Scooter Gennett was a better player than Jonathan India. And at the time, when he was an all-star, if I would have said trade Scooter Gennett because the back of his baseball card tells me that he stinks, but he's been great for 2 years in our uniform, maybe we'll get something for him. You know what we always did? The Reds fan turns around and says, build around him. He's a rock. He's the first all-star we've had at second base since Brandon Phillips. I don't do that. I love Jonathan India as much as anybody, but I also don't think he's freaking Joe Morgan either.
I do think, last thing on this topic, I do think there's some merit to the Reds should not be scared to trade players, and we've got to get that out of our mindset. Should they trade Jonathan India? Should they not? I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Will Myers sucks, AJ. How about that? Sorry, Nick.
I don't know what his overall value is, but we can't be afraid to trade players that work better for the future. That is the Reds' biggest mistake that they have made over the last 20 years, like the Castellini ownership era, is that they held on to players for too long. That, and they had some poor drafts. The combination of that is why the Reds are where they're at right now. So we can't be scared to trade guys. We just, especially the ones that are fan favorites. But yeah,
it's fair. There's some people in the chat that are asking me, what can we get back for Barrero? Listen, I'm not saying we're trading him this year. What I'm suggesting is a ridiculous hypothetical, and that is that he gets sent down to AAA, and he starts putting up the same type of numbers that a Matt McLean or somebody like that was doing down at AAA. So in a year from now, one can make the clear argument that he's ready to be an everyday big leaguer at the shortstop position, and you go find someone that's willing to take a flyer on him because they're going to look back and think that he's got an opportunity. All right. Ronnie brings up a good point. Barrero, I'm not going to say he stinks, but he did say next topic, which I agree with. Any other final thoughts from this game and or other situations that we got going on? Because the Cincinnati Reds are relevant, and it is May 30th. What's after May?
June.
Interesting. If we go one more month of relevant baseball, we've far surpassed probably even somewhat of our expectations. Definitely everyone else's. It is ridiculous. We're even somewhat relevant right now.
Yeah. it's exciting. I think it shows. For me, I'm still far more excited about the future than the present. Um, I know right now it's incredible. The Reds are only 3 back, um, but they do still have like a 3% playoff odds. So I don't want to like go too overboard that in on this season. But I think for the bigger picture for me is just how many um, pieces that were baked on the future have continued to develop, and not even just the ones at the major leagues, the ones that aren't here yet. Um, that to me is, I think, what's the most exciting. I had to shut the chat down. I can't even look. I can't even look at it, man. Can't even look at it. Oh man.
I'm sorry.
I can't.
I'm sorry. You're trying to get through a point. I can't do it.
I'm not even looking at you. I'm like trying to make this point, just staring at the mic, because I know if I
Okay.
look up, I'm gonna go in another tizzy. we're gonna be going.
All right, go ahead. Did you finish your point? Did I interrupt it?
I think so. There was nothing valuable left. So,
all right. Yeah, the chat has beaten us tonight. I feel sorry for all the folks that are going to listen to this in the morning, because Nick's either going to have to do one hell of a job editing this, or it's just going to be us laughing half the time at the chat, and they don't get the pleasure of the chat. So this is a nice time to promo for all the folks that listen to this with their morning coffee in the morning on their driveway into work or commuting, or maybe they're on vacation, whatever you're doing in the morning. If you join us on the YouTube show late at night, you get to enjoy the chat along with it. Sometimes it gets funny. Sometimes it's just, I have no idea what's going on. So please do us a favor. As always, like the stream right now. If you are watching, brings up a good point. There's people that always remind us in the chat. Thank you, Evan.
Like your second stream of the night for us.
Yeah. Like the second stream. I mean, double your fun. As far as the overall feelings towards where we're at with expectations, I have two thoughts on this. One is, let's just be naive fans. Let's not really try to look at the realistic thing of what's probably going to happen in the Cincinnati Reds, because that in and of itself seems more fun. And it seems like I'd rather be that way and live my life that way than to always seem to be these guys that are just the pessimistic folks on Twitter that are always just bringing out just negatives after negative after negative. It's like, there's really not an upside to sit here and talk about how the wheels are going to fall off at some point. And that's my main thing back to you, is just like, people probably make fun of us, Nick. Well, definitely you, because you're too optimistic. They probably make fun of the fact that, oh, look at these losers. They actually think the Reds are good. It's not that I think that the Reds don't have flaws. I do. I just choose to enjoy who they are. I like the fact that they compete. I like the fact that they're fun to watch. I think that they are an enjoyable brand of baseball. Whether they win or lose, obviously that plays a part of whether or not they're fun. But it is enjoyable even if they haven't been winning as much as we like, because of the way they play. I don't think that that's really that far-fetched of a thing to say. They having a guy hit a home run every few innings, and that's the only way that you score, that can be fun too if you're winning. But that's really boring if you're losing. The way this team plays, they compete, they grind out at bats, they walk, I'm not saying they hit and run all the time, but they do run and hit, which is a big difference. There's been multiple times guys have gone first to third. Yeah, this is an enjoyable team to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just the way they run the bases. Started to see some players that are good defensively, which is a huge breath of fresh air. If you were really excited about where the Reds are this season, and you think they have a chance to hang around, then that's awesome, and more power to. And look, they might. I look at the 3% odds and I say, yeah, that's probably realistic based on where it is. But hey, if you want to be a little more, go for it. The only thing that to me is a little bit concerning is this. I've seen a lot of people and replies and folks saying, call up Ellie in CES and we're going to win the division. That's the only thing where I kind of push back and I go, man, we're really setting ourselves up here that if Ellie and Christian Encarnacion Strand come up, and Andrew Abbott, throw him in that mix too, come up here and play like normal players play in their first year, not like Matt McClain. What Matt McClain is doing is not normal by any stretch of the imagination. You're not supposed to come up and hit like he's hitting right now. But if they come up and they struggle and or two of the three or whatever combination, that doesn't mean like the system's flawed, the future's effed, we're screwed, right? I mean, that could happen, and I'm worried about that happening more so than, I'm as excited as I've ever been about the future of the Cincinnati Reds on May 31st, 2023. Will this year mean anything? I don't know. I'm excited to find out. I'm enjoying watching this team every night. That's just kind of where I'm at. We'll see what happens. I just don't want to get into a situation where we are like down on these guys if they don't come up and instantly have success.
Yeah, 2 good points in the chat. We always have some good people that watch this show that actually know what the hell they're talking about. Steve Cashman says the 1990 Reds were not supposed to win either. I waited all year for a collapse. That never happened. And then I'm believing that's Modern Warfare 2, but MW2 Top G says the whole division has flaws, which he's got a point. This whole division does have flaws. There's not one team in this division that I would say if the Reds had to play best of 7 series against that they wouldn't have a chance of beating, more times. I don't say more times than not, but like, is there one team in this division you think to yourself like, wow, they're just way in ahead, better than everybody? It's just a matter of them getting everything clicking. I don't see that. Do you see that?
The Brewers have really good starting pitching that, if their starting rotation stays healthy. I know they actually have like Brandon Woodruff and Wade Miley and Eric Lauer and Aaron Ashby and Jason Alexander all in the IL right now. That's the one thing that I think could at the end of the year be a big difference is the Reds just not having a deep enough starting pitching. Because even if you call up Andrew Abbott, he's probably not finishing the year, right?
No.
I mean, so that's where I kind of look at it and go, yeah, I think there's a pretty big edge on the Brewers in that. The Cardinals, I think they're going to probably figure it out at some point. They always do. Again, I'm excited. The Reds are 25-29. I'm excited they're in third place. I'm excited they're only 3 out. I'm far more excited about the future, but I'm enjoying the present right now. And that's good enough for me. And if you want to go further than that, that's awesome. Hey, man, I'm not going to be the guy to slow you down on that at all. I just want to caution on, too high of expectations for the prospects coming up.
Here's the only thing about that, though, Nick, is you never know. You didn't. I mean, your points are valid. They always are. They're rooted in evidence and they're rooted in actual real thoughts, unlike mine. The thing is that we also thought Matt McClain was going to fall back down to earth. He didn't. He hasn't. Who's to say if he came up, 2 weeks ago or a month before he came up, that the Reds wouldn't be even in a better position because they were struggling at the position that he was playing. Who's to say if you bring CES? The one thing I always love about like everybody with the whole CES thing and the walk rates and the whole strikeout rates and all of that is you might be right. But if I told you that Ben Lively was going to come up here and have a sub 3 RA, what would you say to me? If I told you that Williamson was going to come up here and shove it in Colorado and be one of our, best arms so far, what would you say to me then? There's a chance that these guys are just that damn good. There is. There's a chance Ellie De La Cruz is just that damn good. He comes up here, and I get what you're trying to say. The expectations might be too high. If he comes up here and he struggles a little bit, or if he comes up here and plays like a normal rookie and they don't make the playoffs, who cares what fans think? I mean, who cares? I don't think it doesn't. I guess I'm becoming more of the notion that it just doesn't really matter. You're either good enough to play in this league or you're not. There's a small percentage of players that I think become head cases that you could have maybe needled them in or babied them into the lineup better, and they would have had a different career. But who cares what fans think? That's my main point. So if you do bring up Ellie and you do bring up CES, there's a chance they could play just as good as Matt McLean. They probably won't because Matt McLean's doing ridiculous stuff. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'd rather just find out, because the service time stuff, all of that stuff that we've talked about before in the past, it's irrelevant because these guys aren't going to make it a whole nother year without having service time on their belt. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off and see what we got. Maybe that's part of me being a little anxious, but there's nothing left to prove anymore, Nick. There's literally nothing left to prove for Ellie De La Cruz. Not a single damn thing.
Yeah, one thing that I think about here is I'm really glad the Reds don't have like a Luis Castillo this year that they really need to trade for their future. I'm glad that that's really all taken care of. I'm glad that the only decision is going to be, are we in it enough to trade Buck Farmer or not? I mean, that's going to be the primary decision, at least from what it looks like. So I think that's a blessing. That I don't think really. I don't think you're probably doing much of anything at the deadline this year, unless that other thing that we talked about that we're definitely not going back into again.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a good thing that we don't have those kind of conversations because the Orioles kind of did last year. You know, they had like Trey Mancini and they did end up trading him, and they were very similar to kind of where the Reds are right now. And that's probably a good team to look at with kind of where the Reds are this year versus, you know, where they were last year. And they traded some guys, and it was a tough pill to swallow, but it probably was in retrospect the best room for them long term.
Right. Okay. You have any Reds MILB notes before we send everybody home, or not really? Because I know one MILB note, which everybody else knows too, but you might as well tell the people what happened in Louisville.
What happened in Louisville? Well, the Louisville Bats, they
3-2. There's a swing and a fly ball. Hit well. Right center field. Zimmer doesn't see it, and it is gone out of the Miller Lite party deck. A walk-off home run for Ellie De La Cruz. His 11th home run of the year, and the Bats off the mat.
I feel like the folks at least deserve that highlight.
What party deck was that?
I don't know. I didn't catch that.
Oh, you didn't catch it? Okay.
All right. Well, Louisville, they also beat the Red Sox, but the Worcester Red Sox 5-4. Ellie De La Cruz walk-off. Louisville Bats 27-24. Ellie 2 for 3, home run number 11, and 2 walks, Trace. The home run, 109.2 off the bat, 432 feet. Every home run the guy hits is like 8 miles.
My favorite thing about that, really fast, is that the center fielder was looking into the sky trying to figure out where the ball was. He didn't realize it was like fucking 95 feet over his head. Excuse my language. This is a kid's show.
De La Cruz now hitting .304 with an OPS over 1,000. CES, Trace, he was 0 for 2.
But he walked.
Twice. He walked twice. I
Send
tell
him
you
to
what,
the bigs, baby. Send him to the bigs.
I tell you what, if you look at his game logs, someone in the Reds organization said, you start walking, we're calling you up, because that boy, after not walking once, is like walking 2 times every night. So someone said something to him. I will take that to the grave. Oh, and then just for gravy, Andrew Abbott threw 7 innings of 2-run baseball, no walks, 8 strikeouts. Abbott 16 swing and misses tonight. ERA now down to 2.50. Only downer, the guy they've been talking about, hyping up, Daniel Duarte, did not pitch well tonight. Chattanooga was off. They played on yesterday on Memorial Day. I'm not sure why they played yesterday, but they played yesterday, so they don't play today. Dayton, they also won 4-2. Dragons have won 6 straight games. They're 23-23 now on the season, so that's good to see. Edwin Arroyo 1 for 2 with a walk, and Austin Hendrick 1 for 4 with a double and a stolen base. Daytona, they lost 6-5 to Palm Beach. Staying out in this game, Victor Acosta 3 for 3 with a triple and a walk. That's your Reds minor league update presented by Betfred Sportsbook.
The Sportsbook of Cincinnati. All right. Well, this is part of the show where I want to do what I always do, which is not take this chat for granted. Sometimes we do a good job talking on this show. Most of the time, the microphones work. Most of the time, the little nice rundown thing in the middle works. All of our technology works. But it didn't tonight. So we had to adjust. We had to adapt. We had to find a way. The Cincinnati Reds found a way. Everything was going smoothly. It was looking really, really nice. And then it wasn't. And then I had to find a way to win. But we have a dunk. That's how this works. I did get one text from my wife already that told me I am screaming. That's not ideal.
Tough scene.
That's Kirk Herbstreit's fault, though. Because Kirk Herbstreit's the one that really got me fired up to start this show when I thought about him. He's got too big of a platform to be slandering, slapping around those terrible takes that he had. I can't believe Kirk Herbstreit did that. I thought he was a smarter. I thought he knew ball. I thought he knew ball a little bit better than that. I really did.
Kirk is just like that one guy that he's like probably like me, like where most of my baseball takes are pretty measured, but college basketball, like I let it all loose. Like I'll just throw out the most absurd take because I don't follow it as close. I'm just Tracy in basketball, I'm the passion. I am not the prepared.
I love that.
Don't ever bring me on a college basketball podcast. It'll be Herbie-esque.
I don't mind that. All right, chat. We appreciate you all. The fact that there's 100 people in here listening to us on a what is today? Tuesday night, 11:34, is pretty ridiculous. The fact that Nick Kirby put me on the show full screen means that I have one thing left to do, and that is to dunk a basketball. So here we go. I did get a request for the in between the legs dunk. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do. Hopefully it works out. And it just doesn't. But it will. I'm an athlete. Much love to everybody. Peace out. A-Town down.